Good day, everyone. You are welcome to Galad Science Academy. So our next topic in biology is genetics. So the genetic is the one of the topic in molecular biology, which is known as what cell biology, and in genetics is an aspect of biology that deals with study of heredity and variation, or is an aspect of biology that deals with what the study of what of transmission of gene or trait or character from one generation to another generation, and also the study of what of different behavior or character possessed by a living organism living in the same living by living organism of the same species that live in the same what population. So in short, the term genetic simply means what the study of heredity and variation, where heredity is the study of what of transmission of what of gene from one generation to another generation. The word variation is the study of what of different character possessed by living organism of the same species in the same population. So let us look at what genetics fully. So, like I said, what in genetics is an aspect of what of biology that deal with what the study of heredity and what and variation. Let me start from here. There what genetics is the or is a branch of biology that does deal with study of heredity and variation. The aspect of the biology that deal with what the study of heredity and variation is called what genetics, and the genetics was discovered by Mendel. The scientist that discovered what genetics is called what Mendel in 1862. So the scientist that discovered what genetics is called what Mendel, and this Gregor Mendel is also the father of what genetics. So the father of what? Father of genetics is what? Mendel. So it took Mendel 4 years or 6 years to carry out the what? The research on what? On the genetics. So back to definition, I said genetics is a branch of biology that deals with what? The study of what? Of heredity and what? And variation. So we can observe that what we have two terminologies here. The what is a branch of biology that deals with study of what? Heredity, and it's also what? Variation. Abi? So yeah, what is what? Heredity. So heredity is a or can be defined as a can be defined the heredity can be defined as a branch of biology that deal with what? The study of transmission of character or trait. Transmission of what? Of character or what? Trait or gene from one generation to another what? Generation. That is what we call what? Heredity. The process whereby what? The trait or character possessed by parents being transferred to his what to his children is called what? Heredity. So the study of what? Of the transfer of the what? Of a trait or gene from one generation to another generation, we call it what? Heredity. Or heredity is what? Is a branch of biology that concern with what? The transfer of what? Of gene or trait or character from one generation to another generation. That's what we call what? Heredity. And the next one is what? We have variation. We have what? Variation. Variation. So what is variation? The word variation from the word varies. So the variation is the aspect of biology that deal with what? The study of different behaviors or character possessed by a living what? Organism that live in the same what? Population and of the same species. The deep study of what? Of different character possessed by a what? By a student of the same class. So that's the meaning of what? Observation. It is used to what? The study of what? Of different height, color in complexion, the shape of the body, possessed by a what? A living organism that is stay in a particular what? Place. That is what variation. But the hereditary is what? Study of what? Of traits or character from one generation to another generation. That is hereditary, and the both of them is under what? Genetics. So if you are not asked to divide genetics now, you can also say what? Genetics is the what? Is a branch of biology that deal with what? The study of what? Of transmission of what? Of traits or character from one generation to another generation, and also the study of the what? Of different behaviors or character possessed by living organisms of the same species in the same geographical population. That is what about the introduction to the what? To the genetics. And I said the father of genetics is what? Is Gigor what? Gigor Mendel. And the next thing we need now to check is what? Is genetic terms. In what? In genetics. Genetical terms in what? In genetics. Genetical terminology. Something is what? Genetical what? Terminology. Yeah. Genetical term. In what? In genetics. So we want to look at what? What are the basic terminology that we use in what? In genetics. Like I said, genetics is the study of heredity and variation. Heredity is what? Is the study of what? Of transfer of traits or genetic materials from one generation to another generation. Yes. So if we want to study what? Genetics deeply, the first terminology or the first specimen that we what? We need or we have interest in is supposed to be what? Is the cell. Is what? Is cell. Now the first one we have what? Cell. What is cell? As we all know, cell is the basic or fundamental, structural, and a functional unit of what? Of life. Why is that called cell? Cell is the basic. Cell is the basic or fundamental or structural function of what? Of life. That is, all living organisms will depend on what? On cell directly or indirectly. The basic unit of life of all living things is what? Is cell. So this cell is the building block of what? Of all living organisms. So we all living organisms, we all what? Started from the what? From the cell. You know that what? We have cell, and the cell will lead to what we call what? Tissue, and the tissue will give us what we call what? Organism. Organism will give us what? Sorry. Tissue will give us what? Organ. Organ will give us what? Organ what? Organism. You can see that what? The Smallest unit of living organism here is what? Is what? Cell. So this cell is a basic unit and the fundamental unit and structural and as well as the what? The functional unit of what? Of life. Without cell, there is no what? There is no life. And again, we all know that what? Cell is a partially spherical in what? In shape. Assume this is a structure of what? Of cell. And then we know that what? At the center of what? Of cell, there is a particular what? Organelle there. A spherical what? Organelle. The organelle we have here in the center of cell, we call it what? New what? Nucleus. So the organelle we have here, we call it what? New what? Nucleus. This is a what? A cell. And let me say, this membrane that surrounds the cell, we call it what? Cell what? Cell membrane. Abi? And I said what? This one too, we have inside here. We call it what? New what? Nucleus. So, and the space is between the nucleus and the what? Cell membrane or plasma membrane or plasmalemma of the cell, we call it what? Cyto what? Cytoplasm. So, say what? The first term that we need to discuss on genetical terms in genetics is what? Is cell. Because if we want to talk about the what? The transmission of gene or character from one to another generation, cell must be evolved and the cell is contains what? Contains nucleus. And the major organelle inside the what? Inside the cell, where genetic is majorly what? Concerned or deal with is what? Is nucleus. So this nucleus can be found at the what? At the center of what? Of cell. So the next organelle now that I will explain now is what? Or the next term is that I will explain is nucleus. Because the genetics is majorly concerned with what? Nucleus inside the what? Inside the cell. So what is nucleus now? I'll define cell as a basic or fundamental, structural, and functional unit of what? Of life is a what? Is a cell. And the cell was discovered by Robert Hooke and Anthony Leeuwenhoek. The dead cell discovered by what? By Robert Hooke, where Anthony Leeuwenhoek developed the what? The living cell. So the next organelle now is what? This next term is nucleus. What is nucleus? Nucleus is a spherical organelle. Is a spherical what? Organelle which can be found in the what? At the center of what? Of cell. Is a spherical organelle which can be found at the what? At the center of what? Of cell. And it is made up of what? Of genetic what? Genetic material. That is inside the what? Nucleus, we have genetic what? Material like this. These are the genetic material we have inside the what? The nucleus. This genetic material you have here, we call it what? Chromatin. Is what? What? Chromatin. At interphase stage, the chromosome will appear in form of what? Of chromatin. At early what? Interphase stage. But at late what? Interphase, this chromatin will later condense and form what we call what? Chromosome. So the nucleus is a spherical organelle we have inside the what? Inside the cell, and is control all the activity of the what? Of the cell. All the activity of what? Of cell controlled by who? By nucleus. And this nucleus is contains what? Chromatin at early stage of what? Of interphase. Of what? Inter what? Under cell division. Interphase stage, which is what? The resting stage of what? Of cell. At early stage of interphase. But at late interphase, which is the early prophase, the what? The chromatin will now condense and form what? Chromosome. So this chromosome will now be appear as what? As prophase what? Stage of cell division. So Nucleus is a spherical organelle which can be found at the center of what? Of cell, and is contained or is comprised of what? Of genetic material, which is what? Chromosome and what? And gene. And the membrane that surround the what? That surround the nucleus here, this membrane, we call it what? Nuclear membrane or nuclear envelope. But we don't have interest in that. We have done that in what? In a cell. Yes. So the function of nucleus is what? Is control all the activity of what? Of cell. And this nucleus is also served as what? The brain of what? Brain of cell. So everything that we are going to study under the genetics, they can be found inside this nucleus. You can see that what? The nucleus is paramount to us in what? In genetics. So we have started from what? From cell as a basic and a fundamental unit of what? Of life, or basic, fundamental, and a functional unit of what? Of life is cell. Inside the cell, we have nucleus. And the nucleus is the one that controls all the activity of the what? Of the cell. But inside the what? Nucleus itself, what do we have? We have chromatin, which later condenses to reappear to give us what? Chromosome. So we have nucleus inside the cell, we have chromosome inside the what? Nucleus.